I just played every Microsoft flight simulator ever just to see how far things had come since the first one was made, all the way back in 1979. The first Microsoft flight simulator was actually made by a guy named Bruce Artwick. Bruce partnered with his college roommate Stu to build a company called Sublogic Communications Corporation, changing the home computing industry forever. In 1979, Sublogic released its first ever flight simulator for the Apple II. But where does Microsoft come into play? Stay with me. Simple by today's standards, but mind-blowing for the time, Sublogic quickly saw a success as Apple bought the rights to Flight Simulator, and the program sold over 30,000 copies, priced at $25 a pop. That's just over $100 a unit in today's money. The controls were insanely simple, and you only got access to one plane and one airport, which you could barely tell anyway. But it didn't matter. Sublogic had unknowingly created an icon. It wasn't the prettiest game, but it was a huge hit, gaining media attention and outreach from much larger developers. Microsoft eventually reached out in 1982, asking Bruce to create another one, and thus, a legacy was born.
Every aspect of your flying environment is completely user-adjustable.
The first rendition of Microsoft Flight Simulator was light years ahead of Sublogic's version, featuring dynamic weather, day and night cycles, and 4 different cities including Chicago, New York, LA, and of course, Seattle. These changes proved to be the greatest decision for Sublogic and the flight sim industry, as Microsoft Flight Simulator sold over 800,000 copies in the first 5 years and received glowing reviews from publications across the country, eventually leading to the title being placed in the World Video Game Hall of Fame in 2021. People loved this game. Granted, it was the 80s, so any improvement was impressive, but so was this game. And here's a little historical fun fact for you. The first versions of this game came as kind of a test for your PC. If your PC could run this and something called Lotus 123, which looked like this, you had a pretty stellar machine. Lotus 123 was basically Excel before Excel.
When Lotus introduced 123 software, it became the talk of the business world. And 123 quickly took its rightful place at the top of the PC software sales charts.
Yeah, I don't use Excel, but I watch it for the sport.
And look at Randy Orton slithering.
Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out!
Anyway, from here, the only way Microsoft could go was sky high. Not even 2 years later, Microsoft released the second version of their already successful flight simulator, once again designed by Bruce. This time, Microsoft knew they needed to make serious changes to keep up with the time, so they added joystick and mouse inputs, offering a more realistic experience. They also included a full map of the United States, which could be traversed, but players were still limited to landing in the same 4 cities as the last game. But by 1986, that number grew to a staggering 80 airports. 80 airports in 1984 is wild. You need to understand. Computers looked like this.
IBM has been working with a technology using thousands of these dots of light. The result, an ultra-thin computer display screen.
Computers were a luxury, but that would soon change as time went on. From this point on, Microsoft dedicated every ounce of their being into patching and updating Flight Simulator 2 to include a broader range of support for color monitors, new keyboards, mice, etc., and adding support for Sublogic's scenery expansion discs so players could fly to Hawaii, Japan, and even parts of Europe. Yeah, Sublogic had physical disc DLCs back then. Take note. Every company ever, it was obvious the demand was there. Computer geeks and children alike wanted more time flying and less time in the real world. Microsoft was starting to boom. By 1988, the Microsoft Flight Simulator series was soaring above the competition. The third installment featured a remarkable graphics upgrade from the previous 2, allowing players to customize their displays, and it had better gauges so newbie pilots could navigate the almost 3D landscape. It was also released for MS-DOS on 5¼ floppy disks, and it was the first of its kind that let you fly up to 3 aircrafts, including a Learjet, Cessna Skylane, and a Sopwith Camel. Oh yeah, that's not a 3D printed save button. We used to store things on this. They held maybe a meg of data at the time, but your phone could hold about 10,000 of those. But something really cool about this game is the third-person perspective. The amount of processing power required to do this in 1988 is insane and speaks volumes to Microsoft's dedication. An Apple Watch has more processing power than the average home computer in 1988, but they still found a way to do things with such limited resources. Nothing was impossible. They wanted to be the best of the best because they knew if they could drive their customers to their flight sim, they had to use their products. And Bill Gates wanted exactly that. Microsoft had a monopoly on flight. By 1989, Bruce left Sublogic behind and decided to work with Microsoft directly, and it was the best idea he ever had. Microsoft Flight Simulator 4 made some serious advancements. It was the first one to feature air traffic control talking out loud, but not to you. And they had NPCs flying around on set flight paths, so it actually felt like you were a real pilot that had to be careful not to hit anyone. They also included much better looking graphics, sounds, and weather patterns. Finally, Microsoft was starting to get the hang of things. A lot of add-ons were made for this game too. Players could create custom scenery and backgrounds and even build their own planes. Yeah, they had modding before modding became a thing. People flocked to the stores to get this game so they could swap files and create whatever they could. Microsoft even released an aircraft and scenery designer in 1990 because they knew people would kill for the chance to modify anything and everything. Naturally, as you'd expect, this version of Microsoft Flight Simulator was loved by the media just like the last several. It seemed Microsoft could do no wrong. And that was true. Microsoft Flight Simulator 5.0 was the last one that Bruce developed before they bought him out, but that didn't stop him from doing a fantastic job. This was the first sim in the series that used textures, unlike previous installments that used flat shaded elements to appear real. This meant the devs could make custom cockpits, improve the lighting, and even make the maps look more realistic. The box art style also changed a lot and might seem more familiar to you younger millennials out there. The cover seems almost photorealistic compared to previous versions, which kind of have that 80s look. Shortly after 5.0 released, 5.1 followed in 1995 as an update, which offered violent storms, improved controller support, foggy weather, and an immense customization for almost any aircraft. Little fun fact for you, 5.1 was the first one to be released on CD-ROM. No more save buttons for these guys. Bruce also kept on trucking and decided to release Flight Shop, which lets players design almost any aircraft imaginable. Let's think about this for a second. This game, which started off looking like this, now looks like this. And comes with DLC content, modding, customizable vehicles, and so on. All of this came from a chip this big. This was the kind of pattern from Microsoft at this point. They had a winning formula that couldn't fail, so they kept expanding and upgrading as time went on, until the next version came out. Microsoft Flight Simulator 98 was also known as 6.1 and felt similar to 5.1. They had 45 more cities and 3,000 more airports to choose from, slightly better graphics and lighting, but nothing really to write home about. Except for the helicopters. Now you can fly helicopters around your city without even getting dressed. I'm gonna stay dressed so that this video doesn't get taken down, but you can do whatever you want. The hype around having your own aircraft inside your home, coupled with the immense upgrades from home computing in the 90s, meant everyone could fly. Microsoft sold over 1 million copies of Flight Sim 98 across the globe in just under 2 months, which is pretty nuts considering that most people just think of this as an update to 5.1. But it couldn't be all sunshine and rainbows forever. The unfortunate part was what happened at the turn of the century. A lot was happening in 1999. Many were worried about Y2K crashing the grid and having the world being sent back to the dark ages. Microsoft decided to get a head start on the dumpster fire by releasing Flight Simulator 2000. Although the expectations were through the roof at this point, there were a number of problems with this version. For one, high-end computing hardware was still very expensive back then, and this program demanded a lot of it. But even with proper gear, users still dealt with frame rate issues, crashing, and graphical lag around certain areas. This wasn't Microsoft's best work, and it definitely felt phoned in, but it did include some upgrades like realistic rain, integrated GPS for better navigation, and upgraded AI that would yield to oncoming aircraft. There was also a major increase in available airports. A total of 17,000 new locations were added worldwide, bringing the total to just over 20,000, a massive improvement in the last 10 years. But it doesn't stop there. One of the more controversial titles in the series was Microsoft Flight Simulator 2002, which was released just 1 month after the attacks on September 11th, 2001. The initial plan was to release in early October, but Microsoft paused development to remove the World Trade Center before the game came out. It feels like there's some sort of irony there, but I'm not going to get into it. Just going to hold my thoughts. The devs also learned a lot from the failures of Flight Sim 2000 by adding frame rate caps to avoid excluding any customers. Fancy new communication systems were also added so players could contact other NPC pilots and air traffic control to fully immerse themselves in the world of flight. Weirdly, this version sold much less than the previous versions, despite the very obvious improvements. It's possible that the heat and backlash from past performance issues might have damaged their reputation. Regardless, that didn't stop it from receiving numerous accolades. Yes, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2004, A Century of Flight. I have so many fond memories of playing this game. This is the version I grew up on. 2003 was a hell of a year for gaming, with Call of Duty making its debut alongside GTA Vice City, and of course, we can't forget Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. But it didn't matter. Microsoft knew what they were doing, and they did it well. I played this game a lot in my 8th grade computer tech class, messing around with various aircraft, including the Douglas DC-3, the Wright Flyer, and the Extra 300S stunt plane. It was in these very skies that my dream of becoming an airline pilot came alive. The idea of being paid to stare at such beautiful landscapes for a living seemed so alluring to my 13-year-old brain. This version is peak Microsoft Flight Sim. Although I may be biased thanks to nostalgia, this game featured dynamic localized weather, meaning if it was sunny outside, it was sunny inside. Neat. You also got improved communication with the air traffic control towers and minor improvements to the NPCs, which led to this title becoming the 14th best-selling game of 2003, which, again, despite the competition, is pretty nuts. How could it get any better? Well, in 2006, Microsoft Flight Simulator 10 was released, and at this point, I'm sure you're tired of hearing they added better graphics, better NPCs, and so on. So let me tell you something different. This time, you can be the air traffic controller. Yep, that's right. You control the skies. Players can connect online and direct traffic as they see fit. Flight Sim 10 also came with detailed missions for those aiming to grind out achievements and hone their skills. It seemed the devs learned that with the popularity of RPGs being on the rise, players might want to earn their stripes instead of simply flying around. Little fun fact about this version, this was the first one to be released on DVD. Probably due to its size, but that's still kind of neat. And that was kind of it for Microsoft. They decided to focus on smaller projects like something called Minecraft or something, and abandon the flight sim concept as a whole. Until someone caught the flu that one time. It's been almost 5 years since the world shut down for a bit. It was a wild time. There was turmoil, pain, anguish, and violence everywhere. Microsoft knew people wanted to escape the world they were stuck in against their will and came to the rescue with their first release in 14 years. Creatively named Microsoft Flight Simulator. Sure, the name is bland, but it's won awards, and for good reason. It's got gorgeous landscapes, amazing weather patterns, a virtual co-pilot to help you land when you need it. It's got everything. Except crash physics, apparently. Well, it has physics, but no cool damage effects or anything if you crash. It also runs using cloud technology. See what I did there? Mainly because you can't download all the content, because Microsoft says it's in the petabytes. Petabytes? Also, can we talk about the fact that these guys took a 14-year break and came back and crushed it? Who does that? I could go on all day about the peak of flight sims, but we just don't have enough time for that. The point of this video was to show the immense improvement that can happen in 40 years. We went from flying pixels on a screen, powered by a computer dumber than my watch, to this. We're basically emulating the world in real time. All of this started with one guy, one dream, and an obsession. So if you have something you want to do, no matter how impossible it may seem, do it anyway. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 is coming out on Game Pass, so you may as well try it. No, I'm not sponsored. Yes, I would love to be. But until then, here's the people that made this video possible.
Guys, these probably was sitting on points. Yeah. See, now Jakob, the guy from Poland, come on, now he's on the bubble.